Hello, this is Snugglefree, and today I'm doing a tutorial for the Mi-24 Hinds, and I'm going to be covering employment of unguided weapons. If you haven't watched my previous video where I explain the employment of ATGMs, I highly suggest you go watch that. In that video, I explain Petrovich commands, and I will not be going into Petrovich overlay in this video in detail. When you load up weapons, especially when you mix them with ATGMs, you should really use these standard loadouts available here in the drop-down menu. But basically, these pylons 1 and 6, they're just ATGM pylons. And no matter what else you load, these ATGMs will always work. From here, if you want more ATGMs, then the only thing you can load here are rockets. It's either these B8 rockets or these UB32. B8s are generally better. There's less rockets in the pod, but they can take out bigger targets. So you got KOM variant, which is the high explosive anti-tank variant. And you can kill a tank with one volley, but you need multiple direct hits with this rocket. And against infantry, they are not too effective. For infantry, you have this OFP2 variant, and this is the high explosive fragmentation variant. Also, you have smoke rockets, and you have illumination rockets. And these B8 rockets you can mix and match. You can have one type on one side and the other type on the other side. And in cockpit, there's a switch that you can only fire one side if you choose so. Now, if anything else is loaded on these number 3 and 4 pylons, you will either disable whatever is on these pylons, or you will disable the 2 and 5 pylons, and you will only have 4 ATGMs. Even though they're on there, you won't be able to fire them. So as I said, you should really use one of these standard loadouts, and you will never have a problem with your weapons not functioning. Another thing you can load on here is the KMG UK cluster munitions, and still have 4 ATGM blocks functioning. Some other options you have in the Mi-24 Hinds, you got a bunch of bombs. You got regular freefall, high explosive bombs. Then you got a bunch of regular freefall cluster bombs, including anti-personnel and anti-tank. And you also got the KMG UK cluster dispensers. You got gun pods. You got one gun pod with 2 machine guns in it, 50 cal and 7.62mm. And you got a gun pod with AP-30 grenades. You got S-24 rockets, which are big rockets that are able to take out hardened bunkers and stuff. You also got S-130F rockets, which are 130mm rockets. They're meant against hardened targets as well. And you got extra fuel tanks you can put as well. And before you get to the AO, don't forget to command Petrovich to ready the weapons by pressing left control W. And after 10-15 seconds, when he flicks all the switches, you will be able to use unguided munitions. But you will have to wait 3 to 4 minutes for the ATGMs, as I've mentioned in my previous video. So the first thing I'm going to cover is the cannon. So you got a 30mm twin barrel cannon mounted on your right side, and this is your weapons control panel again, and this weapon selector needs to be in the MG30 position right here, and your 30 will illuminate on this panel right here. That means the cannon is selected. The sight needs to be on. Then you can select the burst length, short, long, or medium. I just use short bursts usually, but use whichever one you want. This range switch, I leave it in automatic mode. In the manual mode, you have this secondary pipper in the middle. And depending on where you select the range, it's going to go up and down. And you also got this scale here matching that range. But in the automatic mode, you will use your radar altimeter and your pitch and roll indicator, as well as your information from the Doppler, to give you an accurate impact point. You don't have a laser rangefinder or anything, so it basically uses the data from the So it basically measures the distance to the ground using your radar altimeter, takes your pitch angle towards the ground, and knowing those values you can calculate the impact point. So another switch you need is this fire control in on position, and this is your MG rate, increase rate or decrease rate, basically fast firing and slow firing. I like the fast firing because when you fire, it's the recoil pushes your aircraft down, and as you fly forward, basically it puts all the round in the exact same spot, almost the exact same spot. So if you're engaging something like a BMP, one volley of the fast firing, it will set it on fire. But you can certainly use the decreased MG rate if you're more comfortable with it. And against unarmored vehicles like trucks and stuff, decreased rate will save you some ammo. Also, this switch on your sight needs to be in automatic mode. I went into more detail for it in my ATGM guide. But yeah, basically if it's in the manual, it's not going to give you any solutions. This is the manual sight mode. But when it's in auto, it will bounce to where it needs to be. Also, you got the ammo counter on the right side here. Right now it's showing 125, and the red light is illuminated, means you've selected this weapon. Basically, it's 125 rounds, but it's also times 2. So if you see these numbers at the back there, it's 30 times 2, so it's actually 250 rounds. That's what you got with 100% weapon load. So I'm just gonna approach these targets on the airfield, and I'm gonna engage a couple. Now, as I've mentioned, it uses your radar altimeter in order to help it calculate the distance. But let's say you're flying over a little hill and the targets are down below. The solution will not be accurate, and you will need to adjust for that. You either will need to fire higher or lower, depending on if your radar altimeter is reading lower or higher than the actual target is. So you got the line on the right side of the secondary reticle, and that line gives you your range to the target. And the skinny line is gonna start disappearing once you get closer, and when the skinny line is within the thicker line, you're within range. Right now I am within range, so I'm gonna engage a couple of these trucks, and you press weapon release in order to fire. So yeah, as I've mentioned, the fast firing rate pushes your aircraft down, and it helps to put rounds on the same spot, basically. See how they all go basically into the truck? So if there was a hardened target like a BMP, you would have multiple hits on it, and it would definitely kill it. But you also got a slow firing rate. If you're trying to conserve ammo, if you got lots of unarmored targets like these trucks, then you can definitely fire one round at a time. And like you saw, the solution that the reticle gives you is quite accurate. And it's a 30mm cannon, so it's quite big, so for these trucks, one round is enough to set it on fire. So the next weapon I'll discuss will be the unguided 80mm rockets. And again, all the switches can be in the same positions. The weapon selector needs to be in the rocket position, which is just one down from the MG30. And this rocket light will illuminate when you have the rocket selected. And with B8 blocks, you will also get the solution for the rockets. If you're using the KOM rockets, the anti-tank rockets, it's going to be the solution for these rockets. If you're using OFP2, they have slightly different ballistics. They have slightly less range, so it won't be quite accurate, but it will still be pretty close. So just remember, if you're using OFP, aim a little higher. For rockets, the MG burst switch works as well. So if it's in the short burst, you're gonna fire 4 rockets per pod, and it's 20 rockets in total in each pod, so that gives you 5 volleys. In medium burst, it's gonna fire 8 rockets per pod, and with long burst, it's gonna fire 16 rockets in one pass, so that gives you like 1.5 bursts. I'm just gonna set up on these targets and demonstrate. So yeah, just like with MG30, you put your reticle on the targets, you watch those lines on the side, make sure you're in range, and then you fire. Press the weapon release button. So again, these KOM that I'm using, they're anti-tank. Multiple direct hits on a tank will kill a tank, but it's hard to do, it's hard to hit. They veer left and right a little bit, up and down. And OFP2, the high explosive ones, would be better against trucks and personnel. So for these B8 rockets, you can load different kinds on different sides. For example, I can load 2 smoke pods on the left side and 2 KOM pods on the right side. And I can select to fire either left side or the right side. So in cockpit, this is the switch you're looking for. Rocket either left or right. So I've got KOM on the right. I'm gonna fire that. I'm gonna flick the switch to the right. I'm gonna press weapon release. And I fire a volley of KOM. There should be explosive impacts. And as you can see, rocket is exploded. So that's KOM. Now I'm gonna switch to the left side, and this left side, the rocket's gonna come off the left side, and it's gonna be smoke rockets, orange smoke. And as you can see, it's just a smoke. No impacts, just a smoke. And the middle position is to fire both at the same time. So the next thing I want to cover are the gun pods. So you got one pod with 3 machine guns in it, 1 50 cal, and 2 machine guns of 7.62 caliber per pod. And you got another pod with AP-30 grenades in it. It's basically just a grenade launcher, but it's pretty hard to use. The grenades are slow moving, so they don't go very far. You have to aim them high, and you have to be precise with where they land, or they won't kill anything. I only had some success with them engaging infantry, but as I said, hard to use. I'm gonna demonstrate the machine gun ones. Unfortunately, you can't mix and match different gun pods, so you can either use 4 AP-30s, or you can use the machine gun pods on the inner pylons, the 4 and 3, and then you'll have to take off these 2. They will just not work. And if you're using any gun pods, you cannot put any ATGMs on the 5 and 2 pylons. ATGMs will just not function. So when you load the gun pods, you're gonna have some additional numbers on your ammo counter. These 2 are gonna be for your 7.62 ammunition. So basically over there it says 7.62 times 4. So you, and here it says 12.7 times 4 for some reason, but it's actually 7.62. It should be 7.62. I'm sure they'll fix it in one of the future patches. So you basically have 425 rounds times 4 for the 7.62 ammunition. And here you've got 2 numbers for your 50 cal. So you got 12.7 times 5. So you got 150 rounds times 5. This is your rounds for the 50 cal for each side. So in order to use the gun pods, you need you got a few positions for your weapon selector switch. You got GM30 is the one for the grenade launchers, so we don't have them right now. So you got fixed MG 762 and 12.7. Both of them will fire at the same time. You got position for 12.7 for the 50 cal, and then you have a position for the 762. I usually fire one at a time. The 50 cal are green tracers, and the 762 are red tracers. The 762, the problem with 762 is that there are a lot of rounds coming out of your barrels and they all ricochet. And the DCS is calculating every single trajectory. So when you fire those in multiplayer, it kills people FPS, but it can still be used in short bursts. And again, the burst selector works as well for this, short, long, and medium. Whenever you select long, you will just basically not cut out. You can, until you expend all the ammo, you can basically hold the button until you run out of ammo. So I'm just gonna flick back to 762, and I'm just gonna engage some chucks. And whenever you select a gun pod, whichever one, whichever caliber, you'll have this fixed MG light illuminate, and that means you have gun pod select. So I'm just gonna dive on some of those targets on the airfield and engage with 50 cal. And again, the solution is pretty accurate, so you can use the targeting reticle for accurate deployment. You do need a few more hits with this weapon than with your 30mm, obviously, to kill targets. And they're only good like against unarmored targets and infantry. It isn't really, it can't penetrate anything armored. I'm gonna switch to 762 now. I'm gonna fire that. This caliber is even smaller, so you need even more hits in order to kill anything. But it's pretty good against the infantry. And I'm gonna flick this one into long burst so I can fire it for longer. The next thing I want to demonstrate are the S-24 rockets. I have 4 of them loaded. And if you load them on innermost pylons and you try to load ATGMs on the middle pylons, the ATGMs will not function. So I might as well load 4 of them at a time. Now some weapons, including these S-24 rockets, when you have them selected, they will not give you a firing solution. It's not available for every weapon that you can carry. You're supposed to use the manual mode, and you're supposed to set the sight using the firing tables, but the tables are not in the manual yet, so I don't really know how to do it yet. So the way I fire them, I just kind of eyeball them. I fire the first one, see where it goes, and then I adjust from there. And having 4 of them helps with that. You get basically 4 shots, 4 tries. So for these S-24 rockets, you want your selector to be again in the rocket position, and the rocket light will illuminate. And as you see, the secondary sight is kind of sitting in the middle. No matter what I do, it's not moving anywhere. That means you don't have the solution for this kind of weapon. Also, that means the range selector could be in the manual mode, but right now, as you can see, it's an automatic and it doesn't give me anything. And this, again, if this is in manual, you can move it manually, whatever you want. But if it's in automatic, it will just stay in the center. It will not calculate the solution for you. So I'm just gonna set up on targets and fire a few. Again, you fire it with your weapon release button. So these S-24 rockets, they don't go very far, so you have to aim them up quite a bit. And these rockets are pretty big, they have quite a huge radius, so if, they're meant for hardened targets. So they will kill a lot of targets near them, near the impact. They're pretty hard to use without knowing how to set up the sight, but they can be used. And you'll have some more weapons that are like that don't have the solution for them. So if you see this, the secondary sight is right in the middle, and you are sure that all your switches are in correct positions, then you're just carrying a weapon that doesn't have the solution. I just want to talk about bombs. So you can carry bombs in the Mi-24, and I mentioned at the beginning the different kinds. And you can mix free fall bombs and the KMGU dispenser. Basically, the pylons 2 and 5, you put the free fall bombs on, and then pylons 3 and 4, you can put the KMGU on. Also, you can put rockets here, the B8 rockets, if you choose so. Basically, the way it's supposed to work, there's a switch in the front seat that tells the aircraft what kind of bombs it has on. So there are two positions. There's the bombs and bomb pods. So right now the switch is, by default, the switch is in bombs. And if I was gonna select bombs and I press weapon and release button, it would treat all these pylons as bombs. It would drop all 4. Even though these are KMGUK, they're not dropped like that. And you're supposed to flick that switch into bomb pods, and then it will only drop 2 and 5, and it will keep these on. And the switch is just right here. This is the switch I'm talking about. It has 3 positions. The bottom one is the bombs, then the middle one is test, and bomb pods is the top one. So right now I have bomb pods. I'm gonna flick it up and close it. Right now the switch doesn't seem to be doing anything. It's still recognizes the KMGUK, and it doesn't drop them if it's just selected in bombs. But they'll probably patch that in the future, so this is keep this switch in mind. And same thing if you're carrying rockets on the inner pods. You need this in the bomb pods, so it doesn't drop the rocket pods together with the rest of the bombs. You're supposed to toss these bombs again using the weapon tables. It will not give you any sort of solution for where the bombs are going to land. But again, the tables are not available yet in the manual, so I don't really know how to do it. I just eyeball them. I just fly over the targets and release. I'm gonna use my KMGUK first. So all the switches are in the same positions as from previous runs. And this weapon selector just needs to be all the way in the down position. You start dispensing by pressing the weapon release button, but you also have this button right here. It stops if you're dispensing and you need to stop dispensing before the bomblets run out. You can press this button and it will stop dispensing, and then you can dispense again the rest of them at a later run. And this light illuminates when you have the KMGUK pod selected, as well as this light on the dashboard. And I'm gonna fly over this line of targets. Press weapon release, and the bomblets are starting to dispense from the pods. Now those KMGUK, they are fragmentation bomblets, so they are only useful against unarmored targets and anti-personnel. They're not gonna do anything against any hardened targets, any armored targets. I also have 2 free fall bombs on me, non-cluster, on the middle pylons. And if you back this weapon selector switch 1, this is gonna be the bombs. And you also have the bomb light illuminate here. And the MG burst switch works for it. So when it's in short, it's gonna drop 1 bomb per weapon release press. If it's in medium, it's gonna drop 2 bombs. And if it's in long, it's gonna drop all of them, all 4. So I'm just gonna dive on these targets, release 1, and release 2, and break off. And it noticeably rolls when you release the bomb. So you gotta keep that in mind. When you lose a bomb, it's gonna roll left or right. So yeah, you got 2 impacts there. One was short, the other one killed 1 truck. So this is all I wanted to show you today. If you got any questions, feel free to leave a comments. And hopefully this was helpful. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Snuggle Fairy, check it out.